When I first moved to Hawthorne Ridge, a sleepy village nestled between the fog-draped mountains and dark, sprawling forests of the Pacific Northwest, I was seeking solitude. My dream was to write a book, something I'd put off for years while caught in the feverish pace of city life. The town was enigmatic, the kind of place where the film of yesterday refused to lift from the scenery. But I found comfort in its serenity, in the distant drone of the river and the rustle of trees against the wind. I settled into a modest, quaint cottage at the edge of town. The landlord, a wiry man named Jonas, assured me the place was perfect for a writer seeking solace. On moving day, he stood awkwardly in the threshold, eyeing me with an unreadable expression. "You're sure you can manage here?" he asked, almost hesitantly. His question, though strangely specific, was easy to dismiss. "I'm sure," I responded confidently. Seeking inspiration amidst the tranquility, I brushed aside whatever unspoken reservations were tied to his inquiry. As evenings fell early and mist rose from the forest, I found the house's atmosphere more quaint to slightly unsettling. It started with subtle noises, a creak here, a sigh there. Those first few nights I attributed the sounds to the house settling, or perhaps the antics of nocturnal wildlife. One morning, over a guidebook and a mug of tepid coffee, I decided to explore the forest that bordered my backyard. Jonas had warned about the dense woods, but mentioned a path that locals often used. I followed his directions and found the entrance, overgrown and seemingly long unused, but still a discernible trail. The forest was still except for the occasional crackle of dry leaves or a bird's call. Each step deeper felt like I was moving through time, brushing against centuries of history in each layer of foliage. The path wound like a serpent, passing old trees with gnarled limbs, reaching out like giant, twisted fingers. At one point, I stumbled on something halfway buried in the underbrush. Kneeling, I unearthed an old rusted bicycle, the kind with large handlebars and thick, rubbery tires. Back home, I mused over the bicycle with uneasy curiosity. Who had it belonged to, and why had it been left to succumb to nature's grasp? Questions pooled in my mind, feeding the growing chill in my gut, but distractions beckoned, words to be written, deadlines looming unforgivingly. Days passed in routine until one night I awakened by the sound of faint music. Strains of an old tune drifted through the woods and seeped into my bedroom. The melody, plucked softly on a string instrument, resonated through the walls, evoking a haunting beauty that was both alluring and unnerving. Wrapping my robe tightly, curiosity pulled me into the chill night air. Peering into the forest, my eyes attempted to pierce the darkness, but the only thing visible was an opaque cloak of night, with barely the outline of trees swaying rhythmically. Morning greeted me harshly. I dismissed the musical interlude as a figment of dreams and of a mind restless under starlight. But beneath layers of skepticism, seeds of doubt took root, extending tendrils in quiet moments. It wasn't long after the first occurrence that the sounds returned, this time laughter accompanying the music. Like echoes from a distant past, the noise seemed to ripple from deep within the woods, each note unsettling in its familiarity. Anxious and eager to neutralize the unease, I wandered into town, reaching out to locals under the pretense of absorbing the town's rich history. Over cups of steaming tea at the cafe, I steered the conversations toward peculiarities of the area. To my surprise, their responses bordered on evasive. Hawthorne Ridge's community, though welcoming, held tight to unspoken secrets. A waitress, eyes darting toward an elder customer, muttered something about children once disappearing in the woods, but was quickly hushed by her supervisor. The old man, Mr. Gordon, gave me a long, hard look before saying, "Best not to go stirring old ghosts." That evening I sat at my desk, the blank page before me a taunting reminder of unproductiveness. As the shadows elongated, slowly claiming corners of the room, I couldn't shake a feeling, a palpable presence watching, a silent witness to my every move. Time meandered, and with each passing day, the semblance of normalcy crumbled. By late afternoon, fear clung to my skin like damp clothes. That night, facing the window, I saw them, fleeting figures moving through the trees. No children, nor adults, their forms seemed more silhouette than substance. Driven by an unknown force and desperate for clarity, I ventured again into the forest, this time following the music and the laughter. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the path quasi-familiar, a fog gathered, whispering among the bracken. I navigated by intuition, moving through the woods with bated breath. Then I stopped. I had unwittingly arrived at a clearing. Here the air was cooler, close to freezing, and for a moment, everything was silent. No music, no laughter, just the thumping of my own heart filling the void. I felt watched more intently than before, but saw nothing. Tension coiled in anticipation. A rustle behind snapped me to attention. I spun, eyes wide in search of meaning in the murk, and there it was. The bicycle, standing upright under a beam of pale moonlight that cut through the canopy. Other items, a fragmented jigsaw of forgotten relics, lay scattered. A lone shoe, a tattered book, a child's doll missing an eye. Dread soured within me. An aching poignancy resonated in the presence of these items, the remnants of lives that intersected here for unknown reasons. On my way back, branches clawed and grabbed, slowing my pace until eventually I gave in. Adrenaline surged. I ran, breath quickening as I stumbled onto the lawn, the forest receding, but never releasing its grip over my imagination. Searching for answers became an obsession, each encounter with the woods feeding my determination to understand, yet leaving me hollow. I began collecting stories, documenting whispers shared in hushed tones, lingering between the fabric of perceived reality and unnerving tales of loss. One particular afternoon, while rummaging through the attic in search of previous tenants' belongings, I unearthed a box coated in dust. Inside were photographs, each black and white and cracked with age. The faces therein reflected eras gone past, yet one stood out. A girl, eyes bright and smiling, gripping the handlebars of the now familiar bicycle. The woman who appeared in many of the frames seemed to exude a melancholy strength, as if aware her place was bound within two realms. The discovery felt like unlocking part of a riddle whose final pieces eluded me. Unable to let it rest, I decided to consult Jonas directly. Yet, as I approached his home, an air of reluctance shadowed my steps. Nonetheless, he welcomed me in, his demeanor unexpectedly genial. For his part, Jonas withheld nothing once I pressed him. Stories of old fears came forth, intertwined with hushed talk of the losses associated with the woods. The small girl, Amelia, was his younger sister. One evening, enthralled by the call of the forest, she'd slipped away, leaving behind only echoes of her laughter. Though searches were extensive, she was never found, and whispers claimed the woods held sway over her fate. His narrative bore no malice, yet the heaviness of truth cascaded, enveloping me. The woods in Hawthorne Ridge, devoid of supernatural forces yet rich in histories unbidden and untethered, commanded respect, a quagmire down which prideful footfalls echo warnings left unheeded. I returned to my cottage near dusk. That night, with dawn eluding the world beyond, the boundary between tangible and intangible finally collapsed. Only the memory of the music remained, a haunting mirror of melancholy unfolding through harmonics along the periphery of perception. As I packed to leave Hawthorne Ridge, determination forged a friction within me. No longer was solitude enough. What I needed was knowledge grounded in the reality faced daily, shadowed now by the inexplicable yet uncannily real chapters encountered amongst the trees. The urge to reconcile these lay deep, bound at the intersections of time, loss, and memory. I understood that to remain here, in this place shaped by stories not entirely its own, was to court the obsessive inquiry that had haunted so many before me. Hawthorne Ridge receded in the rearview mirror. Resolute, I moved toward a future forged of both fiction and reality. Yet always the questions lingered, what the woods knew and chose to reveal, locked within the frame of history and that single unforgettable encounter, now contained within my prose.